Who would win in a fight, Batman or Steve Rogers? Under the gray sky of Gotham, neon lights flicker on the wet streets, reflecting off the glistening puddles. This city, with its cold skyscrapers and dark alleys, is the domain of Bruce Wayne, also known as Batman. In the darkness, he stands atop a building, his black cape billowing in the wind, his sharp eyes watching every movement below. His armor, crafted from advanced Wayne Enterprises technology, is a symbol of determination and intelligence. Every gadget, from mobile grappling hooks to smoke bombs, is designed to deal with any threat. But this time, his opponent is no ordinary criminal. On the other side of the battle line, in an abandoned military base in suburban New York, Steve Rogers, also known as Captain America, stands steadfastly with a glittering vibranium shield. The weak sunlight filtered through the clouds, illuminating his blue uniform with a white star prominently displayed on his chest. His eyes shone with determination, without hesitation. The shield, a masterpiece of Wakanda technology, was not only a weapon but also a symbol of the ideals he protected. With the superhuman strength of the super soldier serum, Steve was ready to face any challenge. This fight was not accidental. A secret organization, with unclear intentions, had manipulated the two into a duel. In an arena set up in the middle of an abandoned industrial area, with rusted machines and cracked concrete walls, Batman and Captain America would face off. No allies, no interference, just two warriors with skills and steely wills. Bruce Wayne studied his opponent. In his lair, he watches footage of Steve Rogers' battles, from lifting a 58-ton bulldozer in seconds, to defeating an elite squad of S.H.I.E.L.D. soldiers in a cramped elevator. Batman knows that his opponent is not only strong, but also fast, with almost supernatural reflexes. But he is undeterred. With his sharp intellect and high-tech arsenal, Batman believes he can turn the tide. Meanwhile, Steve Rogers is not taking his opponent lightly. He has heard of the Dark Knight, the man who has no superpowers but still makes the criminal world tremble. Reports of Batman describe him as a master strategist, a skilled fighter, and someone who is always prepared for anything. Steve knew that his vibranium shield was a huge advantage, but he also knew that Batman's intelligence and preparation could be a real danger. As the two entered the arena, the atmosphere was tense. Smoke billowed from old factories, blending with the dim light of the setting sun. There were no crowds, but the silence of the industrial area seemed to await an explosion. Batman, in his shiny black armor, moved silently like a ghost. Steve, with a steady posture, gripped his shield, his eyes never leaving his opponent. Batman, with the agility of a panther, threw a series of sharp batarangs. The steel blades flashed in the air, aimed straight at Steve. But Captain America, with his reflexes enhanced by the serum, easily raised his shield to block. The sound of metal clashing rang out dryly. The batarangs fell to the ground, useless. Steve didn't wait. He rushed forward, shield raised high, ready to deliver a powerful blow. Batman retreated, activating a smoke bomb. A thick fog covered the arena, obscuring vision. In the smoke, he moved like a ghost, using infrared goggles to track Steve's movements. He knew that Captain America's physical strength was superior, but this battlefield was not just about strength. Batman threw a grappling hook, wrapped around a steel beam overhead, pulling himself into the air to avoid a direct attack. Steve, not distracted by the smoke, listened to every little sound. He heard the snap of the hook, the sound of Batman's boots hitting metal. With a well-aimed throw, the vibranium shield flew through the air, cutting through the smoke like a bullet. Batman, though fast, barely dodged. The shield hit the beam with a deafening clang before bouncing back into Steve's hand. "Not bad," Batman muttered, his voice deep and cold through his voice-changing device. He activated a sonic jammer, momentarily disorienting Steve. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Batman swooped down from above, launching a spinning kick at Steve's head. But Captain America, with incredible speed, ducked and countered with a hook. Batman blocked the punch with his armored gauntlet, but the force of the blow was so strong that he took several steps back. Steve's eyes flashed with respect, but he showed no sign of backing down. Batman, breathing harder, realized that this opponent was not only strong, but also extremely skilled in combat. He needs to change tactics. Steve Rogers was not one to drag out a fight. He charged forward, using his shield as a multi-purpose weapon. A horizontal strike aimed at Batman's chest, but the Dark Knight flipped backwards, avoiding the attack. Steve did not stop. He launched a back kick, the movement so fast that the air seemed to tear apart. Batman, with his reflexes honed over years of fighting, rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the kick. But Steve did not give Batman a chance to counterattack. He threw the shield at a terrifying speed, sending it flying in a perfect arc. Batman, predicting the trajectory, activated an electromagnetic device, deflecting the shield. It slammed into a concrete wall, leaving a large crack before returning to Steve's hand. Batman took advantage of this moment, launching a high-voltage wire, wrapping around Steve's legs, causing him to fall. However, Captain America's strength could not be underestimated. With a jerk, Steve ripped the wires apart, getting up almost instantly. He lunged at Batman, delivering a series of powerful, accurate, hand-to-hand blows. Each punch carried the strength of a man lifting dozens of tons. Batman, despite his armor, felt each blow like a sledgehammer. He tried to counterattack, using his masterful martial arts techniques, but Steve always seemed to be one step ahead. For a moment, Batman activated an electric shock device from his gauntlet, temporarily paralyzing Steve's shield arm. Taking advantage of the opportunity, he kicked Steve in the chest, sending him back. But Steve, with his incredible stamina, quickly regained his balance. He smiled, not out of arrogance, but out of the excitement of a worthy fight. The dim light of dusk filtered through the cracks of the abandoned industrial area, creating hazy streaks of light on the dusty ground. The arena was now a chaotic scene, scattered concrete, twisted steel columns, and the air still smelled of smoke from Batman's bombs. Captain America, Steve Rogers, stood firmly in the center, his vibranium shield glinting in his hand, his sharp eyes fixed on his opponent. Batman, though his armor was showing many cracks, remained poised, his cold gaze hidden behind his mask. Steve charged forward, not giving Batman time to breathe. He unleashed a series of lightning-fast blows, each punch carrying the power of a demolition machine. The shield was used as a perfect weapon, both offensive and defensive. Batman, with the agility honed by years of fighting, rolled away from a powerful shield strike, causing the ground to shake and leaving a large crack. He responded with a series of exploding batarangs, but Steve, with superhuman reflexes, raised his shield to block them, the explosions ringing like thunder. Without pausing, Batman activated a cloaking device, his body fading into thin air. The arena fell silent, save for the wind whistling through the crumbling walls. Steve stood still, his ears straining to catch the slightest sound. He heard the rattle of a grappling hook, the soft click of Batman's boots against a beam overhead. With a decisive movement, Steve threw his shield into the air, aiming precisely at Batman. The shield cut through the air, emitting a sharp hissing sound, forcing Batman to jump to avoid it. As Batman hit the ground, he instantly shot out a high-voltage wire, wrapping it around Steve's shield-wielding arm. The current coursed through, but Steve, with his incredible endurance, only winced slightly. He yanked it hard, tearing the wire like it was paper, not giving Batman a chance. Steve lunged forward, launching a double spin kick at terrifying speed. Batman raised his hand to block, but the force of the blow sent him tumbling backward, crashing into a rusted piece of machinery. Batman scrambled to his feet, breathing heavily. He knew he was being cornered. His armor, despite being made from advanced alloys, was starting to show signs of overload. But his mind was still sharp. He activated a sonic jammer, momentarily confusing Steve's senses. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Batman released a smoke bomb, covering the arena in a thick fog. He moved silently within the smoke, preparing for a surprise attack. But Steve Rogers was not one to be taken lightly. He stood his ground, shield raised to his chest, eyes focused. He sensed Batman's movements, even if it was just a small vibration in the air. As Batman charged out of the smoke, throwing a punch reinforced with his gauntlet, Steve was ready. He blocked the punch with his shield, and at the same time kicked Batman in the knee, sending him to his knees. The sound of metal clashing rang out dryly. Batman, his armor cracked, still struggled to his feet, his hands clenched as if defying fate. Steve, though tired, maintained a terrifying calm. He knew that this battle was not just about strength, but also about will. The shield in his hand glinted in the dim light, a reminder that he was not fighting for himself alone. Batman, with characteristic tenacity, activated the last device in his arsenal, a gun that shot out a super durable alloy of nets, designed to bind even the strongest opponents. The net flew out, enveloping Steve in a tight web of steel. But Steve, with his superhuman strength, tore the net apart with a single jerk, sending the steel strands falling to the ground. He charged forward, not giving Batman a chance to counterattack. In a decisive moment, Steve threw the shield with unprecedented speed and force. The shield flew like a bullet, cutting through the air with a sharp whistling sound. Batman, trying to dodge, couldn't escape its perfect trajectory. The shield slammed into his chest, sending him flying backwards, slamming into a steel pillar. The impact was like a thunderclap, and dust flew into the air. Batman lay on the ground, breathing raggedly. His armor, advanced as it was, couldn't withstand Steve's force. Steve stepped forward, the shield returning to his hand as if guided by an invisible force. He looked down at Batman, his eyes shining with respect but not mercy. The debris of the battle lay scattered everywhere, as witnesses to the fierce battle that had just taken place. Steve Rogers stood there, the vibranium shield still clutched in his hand, his gaze far away. He did not feel joy at the victory, but instead a sense of emptiness. This battle, though intense, was not what he had wanted. He fought for an ideal, but this time, his opponent was not an enemy. Batman, supported by the automated medical system in his armor, slowly rose to his feet. Despite his defeat, he did not feel defeated. This battle had taught him a lesson. Even with all his technology and intelligence, there are still opponents who are beyond human limits. He looked at Steve, not with hatred, but with rare respect. Both warriors, though on opposite sides of the battle, realized that they had something in common. Both fought for justice, albeit in different ways. Steve, with the ideals of a soldier, always puts the interests of others before his own. Batman, with the pain of a man who has lost everything, fights so that no one else has to suffer like him. In this moment, they are no longer enemies, but two warriors who understand each other's responsibilities. A loud noise rang out in the distance, breaking the silence. A secret task force, the ones who manipulated this battle, appeared from the shadows. They were members of a secret organization, with the goal of testing the powers of superheroes to serve their own schemes. But they underestimated both Batman and Captain America. There was no sign of an alliance. Both warriors, while respectful of their opponents, held incompatible ideals. Steve, a soldier at heart, believed that justice must be served with integrity and sacrifice. Batman, haunted by the darkness of Gotham, saw justice as a ruthless war, where every method was justified. Their differences prevented them from standing together, even when a new threat arose. In the distance, the roar of engines broke the silence. A secret task force, the ones who had manipulated this battle, emerged from the shadows. They were dressed in shiny black armor, equipped with high-tech weapons, moving with the precision of a highly trained army. Leading the way was a mysterious entity, cloaked in crimson, its face hidden behind a cold metal mask. He raised his hand, signaling the task force to advance, clearly intending to capture both Steve and Batman. Steve glanced at Batman, but no agreement was reached. He gripped his shield, preparing to face the new threat. Batman, meanwhile, activated a device in his armor, checking the status of his remaining arsenal. Both, exhausted, had no intention of surrendering, but instead of joining forces, they chose to fight separately, each in his own way. The task force attacked. Lasers cut through the air, targeting both Steve and Batman. Steve charged, his vibranium shield reflecting the red light of the lasers, blocking them with ease. He moved like a whirlwind, throwing punches and kicks with superhuman strength, taking down each enemy. His every move was precise, like a perfectly programmed fighting machine. Batman, on the other hand, chose a stealthy approach. He disappeared into the shadows, using smoke bombs and grappling hooks to move between the steel pillars. Small explosives were thrown, disrupting the task force's formation. He attacked from hidden angles, taking down each soldier with quick and precise strikes. Although he lacked superhuman strength, Batman's intelligence and skills made him a threat not to be underestimated. The red-robed entity stood at a distance, observing the battle with a calm expression. He seemed unfazed by the strength of both. As the task force gradually became overwhelmed, he stepped forward, raising his hand to emit a red-hot beam of energy, knocking Steve back. The vibranium shield vibrated as it blocked the beam, but the force was so strong that Steve took several steps back. Batman, seeing an opportunity, threw a grappling hook, wrapping it around the red-robed entity's neck, but the red-robed entity only smirked, cutting the wire with an energy blade. The battle became chaotic. Steve and Batman, though not coordinating, had inadvertently created a situation that the task force had difficulty dealing with. But the red-cloaked entity, with its overwhelming strength, began to gain the upper hand. He moved faster than Steve, landing powerful blows that both combatants struggled to defend against. Steve, with his incredible stamina, remained standing, but Batman, with his armor badly damaged, began to feel his limits. Steve, with his vibranium shield raised, charged head-on. He threw his shield, sending it flying in a perfect arc, aimed at the entity's chest. But the entity, with almost supernatural reflexes, caught the shield in midair, throwing it back with double the force. Steve jumped up, catching the shield, but the impact knocked him to the ground. Batman, taking advantage of the red-cloaked entity's distraction, activated the final device in his armor, an electromagnetic pulse bomb. The explosion sent out a wave of energy, disabling the high-tech weapons of the remaining task force. But the red-cloaked entity seemed unaffected. He turned to Batman, the eyes behind his mask flashing a bright red. A beam of energy shot out, hitting Batman in the chest, knocking him back, sparks flying from his armor. Steve, regaining his balance, charged at the red-cloaked entity. He threw a series of unarmed punches, each punch carrying the strength of a man who could lift dozens of tons. But the red-clothed entity, with its strength far beyond that of a human, easily blocked the blows. He threw a punch at Steve's chest, sending him flying back into a concrete wall, leaving a large crack. Batman, despite being badly injured, struggled to his feet. He knew that he could not defeat the entity alone, but his pride would not allow him to call on Steve for help. Instead, he used his intelligence, quickly analyzing the red-clothed entity's movements. He realized a weakness. Every time the entity emitted a burst of energy, its body would pause for a split second, as if it needed time to regenerate energy. Batman threw a series of batarangs, not to cause damage, but to distract. When the red-clothed entity raised its hand to block, Steve took the opportunity, charging at him at terrifying speed. He threw a back kick, hitting the entity square in the head, sending it reeling. Next, Steve threw the shield, aiming for the weak spot Batman had discovered. The shield hit the entity in the chest, sending it crashing down, the red energy fading. But the red-robed entity was not to be defeated so easily. It stood up, letting out an angry roar. A huge energy blast erupted, pushing both Steve and Batman away. The arena shook, the steel columns began to collapse. Steve, with his incredible stamina, was back on his feet immediately, but Batman, exhausted, could only lean against a wall to keep his balance. The red entity, now clearly berserk, unleashed a series of energy blasts. Steve, with his vibranium shield, parried each attack, but each blow made him feel the sheer power of his opponent. He knew that if he didn't act quickly, they would both be destroyed. Batman, exhausted, tried to help. He activated a final device, a more powerful electromagnetic pulse bomb, designed to destroy power systems. "Rogers, back off!" Batman yelled, his voice hoarse through his voice. Altering device. Steve, unwillingly, knew that this was his only chance. He jumped back, just in time for Batman to activate the bomb. A blinding white light filled the arena, nullifying the red entity's power. He roared, his body shaking, but he remained standing. Steve, not missing the opportunity, charged at full speed. He threw a full-force punch, combined with the power of the shield, straight into the chest of the entity. The impact was thunderous, and the red-robed entity fell, motionless. But it had come at a heavy price. The electromagnetic pulse blast had completely damaged Batman's armor, leaving him almost unable to move. Steve ran over, checking on Batman's condition. He saw Bruce Wayne, now unprotected by the armor, breathing weakly. "You did well," Steve said, his voice low but respectful. Batman, though in pain, nodded slightly. "Finish it, Rogers." When the light from the explosion faded, Steve Rogers stood in the middle of the devastated industrial area, the vibranium shield still clutched tightly in his hand. He was panting, his body exhausted but his spirit unshaken. In the distance, Batman lay against a steel pillar, breathing weakly but still alive. The two, though not allied, had inadvertently created a victory over a common enemy. Steve stepped forward, helping Batman to his feet. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice low but sincere. Batman, with the last of his strength, shook his head. "I don't work in teams, Rogers. But you're a real warrior." Batman, despite his defeat, still maintained his pride. He nodded slightly, acknowledging his opponent's strength. The fight was over, and the winner was Captain America.